It's Thursday. That means it's time for On the Way, our weekly segment on all things considered, breaking down the week's transit news. Joining us, WNYC's transportation reporter Stephen Nesson and Ramsey Khalife. So New Yorkers who recently rode the subway know that things have not really been great recently out there with all the problems happening. Ramsey, you've been looking into the numbers for June and July. Can you just walk us through what you found?
Yeah, I looked at 3 different data points to kind of understand some of the pain riders have been experiencing so far this summer after big infrastructure failures. So you remember the power outages at West 4th Street.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can remember that there was the flooding that really put the 1, 2, and 3 trains in some trouble. One data point I focused on was major incidents. The MTA defines as when the subway experiences 50 or more delays from an incident. Riders can imagine how disruptive that is when your entire train line is down.
Oh my God,
you're stuck at a station for more than 20 minutes or worse, maybe stuck inside a tunnel. There were the most major incidents in June and July this year since June and July of 2018.
Wow.
And the MTA says this was due to those few incidents, the flooding, the power outages, and that it really skewed the data. But there's also all the delays that we found because of infrastructure or equipment failures. Think aging, electric, and signal systems. Those were the highest in July since the MTA started sharing this data 5 years ago. But the MTA points to their on-time performance metric, basically how often a train gets to its destination on time within a certain window, typically 5 minutes. That number is relatively high, and it's about to be the same as last summer. The MTA doesn't think it's a fair picture just to look at the June and July data, but they're yet to share their major incidents and other delay data information for August, and I'm sure we'll be giving it a look once that's up.
Totally.
And it is always tricky to parse historic subway metrics. That's because the goalposts have changed somewhat over the years. While the MTA does include a lot more data online now, it's also adjusted schedules over the years. It's reduced some service on lines, increased on others, which makes taking a historic look kind of tricky. There's also electronic signals on some lines, so it's not all apples to apples comparisons across subway lines.
Yeah.
But like Ramsey was saying, the metrics focused on the rider's experience, like how long you wait for a train, how long your trip is. Most people don't ride end to end, so that on-time performance number doesn't mean a lot to most riders. But even still, all of those numbers took a hit this summer, and a lot of the reasons, like Ramsey mentioned, are about the infrastructure being beyond its useful life, the phrase the MTA likes to use. And the agency is focused on upgrading it, improving the electric, the signals, adding more flood protection, so when we get those heavy rains, it's not a shutdown of the system. And the majority of the current $65 billion capital plan is going to upgrade those items. But again, those aren't things that will improve overnight. It may take years to see the benefits.
Okay, well, we're being kind of hard on the subways, but let's move over to the city's bus lines, which got a report card today, right, from Comptroller Brad Lander. Not great. Stephen, what is the report card and what does it mean for riders?
I know, it's the school just started and report cards are already
Bummer,
out.
Yeah.
So the comptroller looked at bus speeds, on-time performance, frequency of delays, and found that more than half of the city's 332 bus lines got a D or an F, bad grades.
Oof. Yeah.
The borough with the worst grades was Manhattan, where 73% of buses failed to get better than a D. Lander blames mostly bad traffic for that. Mm-hmm. He did give at least one bus in each borough an A. Okay. Congrats, kudos to the Q60, runs from LaGuardia to Harlem.
Nice.
The B31 from Garrettson Beach to Midwood and Brooklyn, BX29 in the Bronx, and Q35 in Queens. 2 Staten Island buses as well.
Okay.
But Lander isn't just doing this for sport. He wants the MTA to study the performance on each line and make it a point for them to increase the performance line by line, maybe make small improvements each year to the worst lines, something that the public can track and see. Mm-hmm. The MTA just said it broadly agrees with Lander, and it noted that it's been doing these borough bus route redesigning the bus routes in each borough for the first time ever. That could help. And both Lander and the MTA agree those lanes just for buses help, and those cameras that ticket vehicles that park in bus lanes should speed up service. But Lander says one thing the MTA could do that would speed up buses right now is allow all-door boarding. That is, tapping your Omni card at the back or the front of the bus. Right now, you can only do that on select bus service buses, but not local buses.
And that's because fare evasion on buses is top of mind for MTA officials who say at one point, reached nearly 50% of all riders not paying their fare. So they've made efforts to curb this problem, including adding MTA agents on select routes every week to check to see people's tickets. That's in coordination with the NYPD, who can issue summonses, a fine if a rider doesn't pay the fare. And for local buses, the agency doesn't typically open up their back door unless commuters are getting off.
Right.
So with that enforcement blitz, fare evasion numbers are still stubbornly high. For all buses, it's about 44% last quarter. And it's especially high on those SBS buses, which have what exactly? Rear door boarding.
Yeah.
Of course, the other thing Lander says that could speed up buses is just to not collect fares at all. An idea that leading mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani is calling for, free buses for everyone, which Lander supports.
Okay, moving on here. Stephen, you stopped by an exhibit at Grand Central Terminal. It's put on by the Transit Museum. It features New Yorker cartoons and covers about the subway system. What did you think? What are your takeaways?
Well, first of all, it was really fun.
Yeah.
The curator did an amazing job breaking it up into different sections. So there's commuter behavior, critters on the subway,
Ooh, love critters,
the
yeah.
waiting experience, service changes, things we've all experienced. She reviewed 500 New Yorker cartoons from the last 100 years and winnowed it down to like maybe the best 24 or so. And, you know, it really captures the experience of like being on the subway system. They have one from the very first issue of the magazine from 1925, where a guy is wiping the grime off a subway car next to a sign that says, "Please help us keep the L in subway clean." I think he's just cleaning it so he could see where his stop is. But it's, you know, the irony is there, the New Yorker humor, even from the very beginning. I chatted with one of the New Yorker cartoonists, Ellis Rosen, who came by. His work's featured in the show. He has one of two cowboys standing on the platform. I don't know if you've seen this. They're both standing. One's on the platform, one's in the open door of a train. And the caption says, "You ain't getting on this train till I get off first."
Okay, all right.
I was curious how Rosen came up with this cartoon. This is what he said.
It's not a law. It should be a law. In my family, anyway, this was like a very important subway etiquette rule that should be enforced, in my opinion, through cowboy dueling, whatever you call that. Normally, you're making fun of etiquette, but in this case, I take this very seriously, so couldn't make fun of it. Had to just make fun of the offenders.
The exhibit runs through October. So check it out.
Very cool. All right. Every week in our On the Way newsletter, we answer a question from a curious commuter. This one is from Barbara in Manhattan, who asks, officials are still touting the success of congestion pricing, but it seems to me that the bad old days are coming back a little. Are there any recent stats, or are they still using the early numbers?
So, Barbara, if you're referring to the bad old days as Manhattan's traffic before congestion pricing, you might have been noticing how busy the city gets during the peak summer tour seasons in June, July, and August. By the latest metrics, the congestion pricing program is actually still achieving its goal. That data that we have shows that vehicles traveling into the central business district, Manhattan below 60th Street, is down 12% compared to those 2 months combined last year. There's also more riders on the subways. Average daily subway ridership for June, July, and August was higher this summer than the last summer. It's helpful to take maybe summer holidays into account when New Yorkers are maybe getting in cars, commuting outside the city to nearby states or towns for the holidays. Could mean heavier congestion in the tunnels and on bridges leaving Manhattan.
All right, time to get out of here. Thanks to Barbara for the question. Thanks to WNYC's Ramsey Khalife and Stephen Nesson. You can stay in the know on all things transit or ask a question of your own by signing up for our weekly newsletter at gothamis.com/ontheway. Partners, thanks so much.
Thanks, partner.